Today we take up the new chapter, the earliest societies. This is a chapter in history which we will take, and I will quickly begin.
Ma'am, please speak little bit louder.
Just a second, child. Okay, so we will be doing the earliest societies. This is the next chapter in history. Am I audible now? Now you are requested to first you'll do the important. Okay, switch off your mics. The earliest societies, that means the early people, the early man who lived, what were their life was like. They were roaming around in search of food, hunting animals. They didn't know how to cook. It was that time that we are talking in this chapter. Now, they were just the hunters and the gatherers, and that was the way of their life. Now, what does that mean? They were hunting animals and gathering food. They had no proper supply of growing their own food. They didn't know the art of agriculture at that time. And they were living a nomadic life. Nomadic life means where you do not settle in one place, but you keep moving around. And you move around to a place, use that place, and then once the place gets depleted means when there is no more greenery around, then you move around to some other place. So, in this chapter, we will deal with the earliest societies, the early human beings, their life, and how they lived. According to most of the scientists, the Earth was formed about 4.5 billion years ago. Please underline this. The Earth that we see today was formed in a Big Bang theory. You know that? It was 4.5 billion years ago it was made. In comparison to the history of the earth, human existence upon the earth is new. The age in which the earliest human beings lived is called the prehistoric period. Now, history, we all know, is the study of the past events when the written records were there. Prehistory is that period where the early man lived, but since he did not know how to write, how to use the language, so the written records are not there. That means we don't have solid sources which can tell us about their life. That is called prehistoric period. Okay. Now the study of man's physical and cultural development is related to anthropology. Now this is a new word to you. The word anthropology means it is the science where you study the evolution of man, his physical appearance, how he earlier looked like an ape. See here, he looked like a monkey, the earliest human being, and how he evolved and turned out to be like what we see them today. हम लोग आज we are the monkeys or apes are our ancestors, and we are the new evolved people. That means over the years, the working of man has changed, and that has given him a different appearance. So when you study all that, the physical appearance, the cultural development, how they learned to make tools, how they used it for hunting, how the gradually the tools were refined and made better, and then gradually the fire was discovered, wheel was discovered, and then the transportation began, then the barter system came. Man lived a settled life. He started growing food, started domesticating animals. Gradually, he settled down in villages. Villages grew up into towns, towns into cities, and then passage of evolution. Evolution means changes kept on happening over the years, over the years, over the years, and man evolved what we see him today. So, all this, when you study the cultural part of it and the physical part of it, comes under the heading anthropology. Okay, it is a different subject which you do it in graduation when you go. What is graduation? That is after class 12, when you opt anthropology, it is a branch of, it is a separate branch of human study. Okay. So anthropologists are trying to examine the following clues to find about to find more about the early man. And what are they studying now? The bones of early humans, the bones of animals found near the bones of early humans, the artifacts such as weapons, tools, implements used by early humans. So, all this, the early part of man, what he used, how he looked, the bone structure of man in the early times, all this is studied under anthropology. Now we talk of evolution of man. That means how man came into existence and how he evolved, how he grew, what changes he underwent. That is called evolution. And under the heading of evolution, we first read in red written here the Stone Age. Now, before we go on to Stone Age, we need to know why it is called a Stone Age. Why stone indicates the word Stone Age tells us this was the earliest time when man knew nothing. So, since he was living in a wide open space in the forest, maybe the first thing he used was the stones. पत्थर लेके वो हर काम करता था. To hunt an animal, he used stones. To for fishing, for hunting, for anything, he only used a stone. Why? Because the stone was easily available. So that is why that time was known as the Stone Age. Now, the remains of human beings have been found in India dating to the period nearly 5 lakh years ago. Please underline 5 lakh साल पहले it is talking of. Okay, that was the time when in India we have traces of human settlements. When we first heard about humans being present in India we are talking of, it was 5 lakh years ago. The study of these ancient evidences of human activity in India reveals the use of stone implements. This age, when man used stones to make weapons and tools, is called the Stone Age. So, this was the time everything, the weapons and the tools, he used to eat in the stone bowls, etc. That age is known as Stone Age. Now, the Stone Age is further divided according to the quality of the stone tools. The division of the age is as follows. Now, depending upon the types of stone tools found, we have divided the Stone Age into various stages. Like earlier, he used to just pick up the nearby tool stone, whichever he could find, whichever shape it was, and he used it for hunting. Then gradually he started giving shapes to the stone tools. Then he tried to give, sharpening them with the edges. And not just the big stones were used, even small stones were used. They were sharpened at one edge and they could even be used as knives, etc. So, all this, though he was only using tools, but stone tools over the years got refined. They got more polished. Earlier, he just used to pick up a stone and throw it on the animals. Gradually, he started making changes in it. And on the basis of these changes, the whole Stone Age, that means the period when man used stones, has been divided into various stages known as Paleolithic Age. That means paleo means old, lithic means stone, and age. So old Stone Age. That means the time when he was just picking up the stone and hitting the animal. Then came Mesolithic Age. Meso means middle, lithic means stone, age means age. So Mesolithic Age means Middle Stone Age. Then Neolithic, neo means new, lithic stone. Okay. Then comes Chalcolithic Age. Now, this was the time when man first discovered a metal. While he was digging the soil, he came across a metal called bronze, and he saw that the metals are more durable. Now, there was no iron, no other metal, only bronze was the first. Bronze and copper, these were the first metals which were discovered, and that is why it was called as the Chalcolithic Age or the Bronze Stone Age. So he used this metal along with the stones. He attached the stones on the metal rod and started using it as a spearhead to hunt the animals. So we will learn about Neolithic and Chalcolithic Age in the next chapter. Only in this chapter we will be doing the Paleolithic Age. That means the old Stone Age, the early man time. Okay, the early man when he first used this. Okay, so here we are, the Paleolithic Age or the Old Stone Age. Now, 5 lakh years before Christ to 10,000 years BC. Please underline the dates. This is the time period, pretty long time when we call it the Paleolithic Age. That means the oldest stone age. Now, the name Paleolithic is applied to the earliest people as the only evidence of their existence is given by a number of crude stone implements. We do not know much about them. We only know that the early man lived because of the stone tools which the historians and archaeologists and anthropologists, they have dug open from the soil and they have found the remains of the evidences left by these early people in the form of these crude stones. Crude stones means they are just raw. The way the stones were, they were used. Paleolithic remains have been found in the Son River Valley, Pakistan, in the upper Narmada region, and near Chennai. Please underline these places: Son River Valley, Narmada, and Chennai. Here, the earliest traces of Stone Age have been found. We have no knowledge of many Paleolithic remains in India, as several caves and riverbeds have not been investigated systematically. The climate has also not helped in preserving the remains. Now, in India, only these three places we have the evidence. One is in Pakistan now, and we are not able to find more about the riverbeds. That means the river settlements, because early people settled next to the river because they had continuous supply of water there. So earlier settlements are not very clear in India because in India we have not been able to excavate a lot. We have not done a lot of digging and finding out. Why? Because the most of the rivers, they have maybe washed away with them the stones. Okay, so we are not very sure, we are not very aware. Only we have just a few evidences near the Narmada river and Chennai. Okay, now sites of Paleolithic man in India. Now they are telling you there are certain areas which tell us, which though we don't have lot many proofs, but yes, there are certain evidences in India which tell us that yes, there the early man settled. So let's see the sites, and you need to know them. All of them are marked in red, so you can just read them. Okay. Paleolithic remains have been found in South India or the Deccan. The main sites are Madurai, Tanjore, Kadur, Nemati, Talia, and Bellary districts. Later, Paleolithic remains have been found in the neighborhood of Chennai. Then Paleolithic remains have also been found in Hyderabad, Dharwad, Bijapur, Belgaum, Gujarat, Rewa, and Bundelkhand. Old stone implements, that means tools and weapons, have also been found in Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, and Madhya Pradesh. There must have been some connection between the Paleolithic people of different parts of India as the findings are similar in different parts. So here they have given you the names of some places and you'll see that most of these places are in India and they have got a lot of similarity. Whatever remains were found were quite similar. So this shows that the early man had some connection with each other. Though the land is very vast, the area is so vast, yet we know that the people were connected. Okay, before we move on, we just need to know find out pictures on the internet of Bhimbetka, Hunsgi, Baichilal, and other sources mentioned in your book. Most of the Paleolithic remains in India are made of a peculiar kind of rock called quartzite. Underline this. That means the rock जो पत्थर यूज हुआ था उसका नाम क्या था क्वार्ट्जाइट. Due to this fact, the Paleolithic men in India are also known as quartzite men. So the early man which were found in India, which was settled in India, it was believed that they used the stone called quartzite. Now, before we move on, just let me try to tell you what basically a quartzite stone is. Now, while at the time of construction of a house, have you seen the glittering stones which are assembled? जो गिट्टी
Yes,
गिट्टी
ma'am.
कहते हैं ना, small pebbles,
Yes,
they
ma'am.
are shiny also, they are of different colors, gray with different shades
Yes.
of gray. Have you seen them? So the quartzite stone looks somewhat like that. Somewhat. Okay. So in India, various places have been found where people had been using this quartzite stone. And since they used quartzite stone in large number, that is why the early man in India was known as quartzite men. Okay? Is this much clear to each one? Then we come on to life of Paleolithic men. Now, what kind of a life they lived? Let us see quickly. Life of Paleolithic men. Paleolithic man was a nomad. Nomad means one who keeps on wandering from one place to another, who wandered from place to place, hunting and gathering food. So, since he did not know the art of agriculture, so obviously for hunting he used to move from one place to another, and for the wild plants that he used to eat, for that he used to move from one place to another. He lived in caves and rock shelters. So he did not had a hut properly made, whereas he lived in caves. Caves जानते हो in Hindi it is called गुफाओं में रहता था. Okay. He covered himself with coarse animal skin and leaves. Now he did not had any clothes like we wear today. Most of the time he was naked. But if he at all wore anything, it was the clothes made from animal skin or from the leaves. He ate mainly wild berries, nuts, roots, meat of animals that he hunted, and even insects. For hunting and protection from ferocious animals, he had to move in groups. Such groups were never very large. Any outsider was considered an enemy. So now, since they were living in groups, and why were they living in groups? Because to hunt a wild animal, if a single human being did, he could have got killed by that wild animal. So they moved in groups and they hunted also in groups. And since they were living in groups, the groups were not very large since they wanted food, and if they killed one animal, so they needed just few people to have it. Otherwise they would have had a city of food. They also ate wild berries, jungly पौधे खाते थे, nuts, roots, etc., and meat of animals. And any outsider in the group, anyone who wanted to join, he was called as an considered as an enemy. Neither there were outsiders in the group nor there were any family ties. So now, though they were living in groups, but there were no family ties. They didn't had emotions. They were not family that mother, father, children were living. No, they were just random people living together. The life of Paleolithic man was full of dangers, and hence his lifespan was only 20 to 25 years. So, since there were dangers, since he was not sure of his lifespan, so there were always constant threat of animals, plus maybe accidents happened. Maybe they fell off from the cliffs, they hurt themselves in the forest. So they could only live for 25 years at the most. So the lifespan of an early man was just 20 to 25 years. Okay? Is this much clear to each one of you? Is this much
Yes,
clear?
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. We now come on to the next heading. Why did the food gatherer move from place to place? Now, why did he not live a settled life? Why was he moving? Why the early man who was called a nomad was moving around from one place to another? Now, simply because he was a food gatherer. एक जगह पर जब वो जाता था, he used to use that area, whatever greenery was there, whatever plants were there, whichever animal he could find, he used to hunt them, stay there for 4, 5, 10 days, maybe a month, and then he shifted to other place because there he utilized everything. So now he had to move from one place to another. So let's see the reasons they have given us. There were so many causes for this. Some of them are as follows. Number one, Paleolithic man did not know how to grow food. He therefore had to move from place to place in search of food. So since he was not knowing the art of agriculture, he did not know how to grow his own food. So he was moving around in search of food. Then number two reason why he used to move from place to place, they lived close to the source of water to get sufficient supply of water. Once the water supply got exhausted, they moved to a new place in search of water. Now, living next to a stream, once they used that stream, once the water from there was used up, they had to move in constant search of water, and so they moved ahead in search of it. Number three, they hunted animals, and animals too moved from one place to another place in search of food. So when animals moved, they also moved to newer places. So the reason is clear. Since they were hunting animals, and animals are constantly on move, they don't build houses and stay there. So since animals were moving around, even they the early man also moved in search of these animals, and they also got moved to newer places. Number four, during the process of hunting, they followed the movements of animals. They tried to save their children. Now, while they were moving from one place to another, they always moved in the places where these animals had moved. And once they moved, they were also protective about their children. So they moved in groups and they kept changing places so that the animals were also not aware of where they were living. Number five, in order to protect themselves from dangerous wild animals, they moved in small groups and always lived close to each other. So, obviously, the wild animals were constant dangers for them. To protect themselves, they needed more than one person. So, they started living in small groups and they were closely attached to each other. Attached means they closely moved in groups so that they were not harmed by these dangerous animals. So basically, the Paleolithic man made two major achievements. So, what are these two achievements? Let us see, which changed his life. First was the important achievement was making of his stone tools, while the second important achievement was discovery of fire. So it was the early man who first learned how to make stone tools, to hunt animals, and to use it as a utensil and other weapons, other implements. And the second thing was the discovery of fire. Once the fire was discovered, his life was little safe. So we'll do this in our next class when we meet tomorrow for further. We stop here for today. Is this much clear to each one of you?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Yes,
Very
ma'am.
good. So we stop the recording